On the heels of the GameStop Nintendo Switch 2 pre-order leaks, we now have a potential Target pre-order leak that gives you a better idea of when this system will be available for you to try and click get it. Plus, some new games coming out. Their designers talk about if they're coming to Switch 2, and I think it's definitely an interesting conversation. So, what's going on, everybody? It's Zach from Switch 4. Hit that like button if you're ready for Switch 2. Maybe April 30th is your date. Now, it's very odd that April 30th is the placeholder date within Target's system because many people are dismissing this as, hey, April 30th is just the end of the month placeholder. They're expecting the pre-orders to be sometime in April, so they're throwing it on April 30th just because. Now, many people expect Nintendo to drop the pre-orders at the Mario Kart Direct this week, and I think there's a good chance they do that. But this back-end check of Target does show that they have April 30th listed, and it's very interesting because I will let you know April 30th is a Wednesday. So what's the bigger coincidence? That April 30th is the last day of the month and that's just a placeholder? Or that April 30th is a Wednesday, which is the same as April 9th was a Wednesday when Nintendo Switch pre-orders were supposed to begin in the United States and Canada. So is it the Wednesday thing that we trust? Is it the end of the month thing that we trust? Typically, if a company, a store, does not know when a game is launching, they'll throw it up as December 31st of that year. And the game is not obviously launching on December 31st, it's just a placeholder. So my question is, why wouldn't they put the placeholder December 31st? They're guaranteed that the Switch 2 pre-orders are going to happen in April, so they're putting April 30th? Or is April 30th the day that Nintendo has given them and they're waiting to fire on that day and already loading it into the back end? I would give this like a 90% chance that it is just an end of the month placeholder and a 10% chance that it's actually legitimate. And the thing that makes me think it might be legitimate is Nintendo is weird. They have not yet announced pre-orders at all. There's nothing that says they have to tie the pre-orders into this week's Mario Kart World Direct, and maybe in a weird way they think that they don't want to make that announcement. They've obviously already pre-recorded the Mario Kart World Direct, so maybe they don't want to get in there and record and add that in. Maybe they don't feel like it's the right time. Maybe they're still waiting for some decisions or some economical things to shake out. Is April 30th a placeholder, or is April 30th the date? You be the judge. Let me know in the comments down below if you think Target is in the know and they know that this is going to be pre-orderable in 2 weeks, or is it just a placeholder and it could happen any day, any time. Now, let's talk about some games that are coming out that could come to Nintendo Switch 2, given that we know this system is perfectly capable and really, really impressive in terms of the porting functionality. Now, Marathon was recently showcased by Bungie. That's their new extraction shooter with all sorts of cool art and maybe not the most innovative gameplay. Nonetheless, I think the title looks very interesting, and the game director was asked about bringing it on to Nintendo Switch 2. He said, at the moment, we don't have any plans to add additional compatible hardware, but we will consider it in the future. And this seems to mean that, hey, we don't have a Switch 2. Bungie probably does not have a Switch 2 dev kit, as we have heard that outside of Nintendo's primary partners, a lot of developers don't have access to Nintendo's new stuff. Bungie would definitely not be a Nintendo partner, and not a primary partner at that, because they've never put a game on a Nintendo platform. I don't think anything Bungie has ever come out on a Nintendo platform. No Destiny, no Halo. Would Marathon be a good fit? I think given that they now have the awesome mouse controls, they now have the capability to do 120 frames per second, they now have the capability to do 4K in some cases, like, why not put anything and everything on Switch 2? What's interesting here is this is going to be a multiplayer-only game that heavily focuses on a 3-player experience. Now you might say, hey, Nintendo just added in this great game chat feature, but for a multiplayer-only game, I gotta be honest, the Switch is still probably the last place that people are going to play, the average person. Some people will find great fun on Switch. They're obviously going to have games like Fortnite on Switch 2, Call of Duty on Switch 2, but will there be a true online multiplayer type audience on the Switch 2 now that it has the performance side of things under control, but maybe it doesn't have the friends, the party system, the accessibility for the online ecosystem side of things modernized enough to make a dent in those typical communities. It'll be interesting because the Switch did a great job of acquiring a bunch of free-to-play titles and getting a lot of multiplayer games, although a lot of them did struggle with player base except for the biggest ones. So for a game like Marathon that exists only for multiplayer, and a game that they Don't even know yet what the price is going to be. A lot of people are saying it should be free to play. It seems like Bungie is saying it's not going to be free to play. Would this be a fit for Switch 2? And personally, I think that the only type of game that, frankly, every game should be on Switch 2. If you're going to put your game out on PS5 and Xbox Series X, put it out on Switch 2 as well. Nintendo deserves that, because the only way to build a big multiplayer online community is to start putting big multiplayer online games. It's never going to come just naturally. Nintendo, outside of Splatoon and Mario Kart, isn't going to have a big hardcore online multiplayer game most likely. So we're going to be in a chicken or egg scenario until people start putting their games on Switch 2. So I say bring Marathon. Bring a Bungie game, spread it around. Maybe you can find a niche audience. Maybe you can implement cross-play and cross-progression. Marathon probably will need it, especially if it's charging a premium price and trying to be an online-only extraction shooter, given that most extraction shooters where you go into the map, get as much loot as you can, and get out before dying and losing everything, most of those are free to play. So Bungie is taking some risks. I don't think the Switch 2 would be a risk. I think it would pay off even a little bit. There's no way that the Switch 2 is a bad move for any game. And I hope the same can be said for Star Wars Zero Company, which was just officially confirmed for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X and S. Now that's missing one key system dropping this year, the Switch 2. But Star Wars Zero Company is a tactical single-player Star Wars title that looks awesome. It's developed by Respawn and Bit Reactor. It basically is XCOM Star Wars or Gears Tactics Star Wars, and there's no reason this game shouldn't also be on Switch 2. Obviously, it's being published by EA, given that it's a Respawn joint. EA has committed Madden and FIFA. They've yet to commit any of their other titles. I think the Jedi games are a great fit for Nintendo Switch 2, but we definitely should be getting a game like Star Wars Zero Company. If we're not going to get a game like Marathon, at least there's some justifiable reason. If we're not going to get a game like Star Wars Zero Company, this is just publishers being foolish. Do not sleep on the Switch 2. The Switch 1, yes, may have lacked in power. It made up for it in amount of players, but some games just weren't the right fit. I guarantee Star Wars Zero Company can run on Nintendo Switch 2. We've seen screenshots of the game. It's a tactile game. The pace of action is fine for the Switch 2, and we know the Switch 2 can handle games that have complicated graphics, huge worlds like Cyberpunk, can take advantage of fast frame rates, can take advantage of HDR, can take advantage of ray tracing. Star Wars Zero Company should absolutely be on Switch. And I still do wonder, like, how is Nintendo handling the rollout? Is any and every company allowed to announce their Switch 2 game? Is there still a moratorium till launch? Is Nintendo selecting partners individually and how they pick the games that get showcased? Is there going to be a big splash of new Switch 2 third-party announcements at Summer Games Fest with Jeff Keighley right around launch? Is Nintendo saving some titles for future directs and presentations? Nonetheless, as an emerging Star Wars fan, because I love the Star Wars card game, I need Star Wars Zero Company on Switch 2, and I think that just about everything should be on Switch 2, right? Like, really, multiplayer, single player, to me, one of the greatest signs of success for this system, outside of sales, outside of great first-party games, outside of these nice day-one titles like Cyberpunk and Elden Ring running well, is a game like Star Wars Zero Company. There is no excuse why Star Wars Zero Company should not be day and date. We know EA has dev kits. They're making FIFA. They're making Madden. We know that Nintendo has worked with them in the past. Get this game out there. Why it's not announced for Switch 2? I don't know. But to me, we've got Elden Ring. We've got Cyberpunk, right? We've got Star Wars Outlaws from Ubisoft. We've got a bunch of big titles coming to Switch 2 that are great looking and require quite a bit of oomph. Everything going forward should be there. And I'll start to get a little worried, and I'll start to reconsider some things. Not my purchase of the Switch 2, but just what's going on and who's the limiting reagent here if a game like Star Wars Zero Company does not make it out. I understand Marathon is a much bigger deal. Bungie's never worked with Nintendo, and Marathon is an online-only, hardcore online multiplayer game. But something like this, single-player tactics, bring it to Switch. We freaking had XCOM last gen. Bring it to Switch. Let me know your take in the comments down below. Do you think Marathon needs to be on Switch 2? Do you agree with me that, like, every game should just come out on Switch 2? That it shouldn't be an every game discussion. Ooh, is this one? Is this? It's just like, hey, if it's a new game and it's even remotely compatible, boom, it should be on Switch 2. Treat it like the third platform, the third pillar that it definitely is. They've made huge strides with the hardware, huge strides with the power, the screen, the technology. Treat it like it is. We don't need to say, maybe if we can get it running, maybe if we can get a great port, maybe if a port studio signs on. We know that the porting has been pretty palatable for companies that have already made it happen, and we know that they've got great games up and running at good frame rates. So get these games over, And let me know what you think about April 30th for pre-orders in the comments down below. Until next time, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. Love you lots. Switch Force out.